clear. Senator Francis Heiliger, you may proceed with your 4 minutes of questioning.
Good morning to my colleagues. Good morning to the people of the territory. Good morning to the testifiers. First of all, I wanted to ask some questions in regards to the process for dealing with contracts in regards to our recovery. What percentage do you believe, because we know it's billions of dollars that you guys possibly have to deal with, what percentage of your workforce do you feel has been separated to work on this? Because when you come from a regular day-to-day operations of maybe a few $1 million a year to now potentially have to deal with billions, how is that eating into your workforce and really getting the day-to-day operations done outside of dealing with these contracts?
Thank you for the question, Senator. It's quite impactful. I think one of the benefits of the procurement team and the nature of what we do is so interrelated that all of the staff, the entire staff is impacted. We're going from requisitioning for those things to drafting scope of work to soliciting. So it takes the entire staff to put all hands on board to get those contracts moved through the process.
And I know you guys spoke about some vacancies. Do you think if those vacancies were filled that you could do a more effective job? Or what are your thoughts in regards to getting those filled out?
Thank you, Senator. Senator, we have an awesome HR personnel, awesome. And we've done a very good job of filling our positions. So it's not so much filling the positions, it's about getting additional hands on board.
Okay. And your standard operating procedures, how often do you update those? Because as you know, as time changes, you might run into a snack that say, wait a minute, we didn't take into account for situations such as this, or you might have had a policy that is no longer valid. How often do you update it to meet with the times and what you're doing on a daily basis?
And to address your question, that is paramount to our organization, and thus we have on board a policy council that is responsible for keeping those updated, because as you know, with the procurement laws, it touches all agencies, all of our laws, because we're a support agency. So we do it recent as July of this year, we updated our procurement. We are working on all the other functional areas, SOPs.
Okay, good. One of the things I know, the Vendors Plaza was transferred over to property and procurement. Did you guys have a hand in the new design, or was it transferred over after the fact?
Oh, it was done before.
Okay.
It was completely, yes.
Okay. Well, I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I got quite a bit of calls in my office, and I wanted to know from a design standpoint, who came up with the choosing of the design? Because for me, I love how it looks, but I also had to look for the practicality of certain aspects of it. The choosing of metal versus building wood, because we live in the Caribbean, and this is not a situation where people could put AC in these things. So with the beating sun heating down on these metal, I can't imagine what their day is like on a day-to-day basis. So who came up with the idea to choose metal versus a different type of material that might be more heat
30
responsive?
seconds.
So, Senator, I can't speak specifically, but I know when we receive it, it was already done. Okay. It was a matter of executing the contractual part of it. So those discussions were had previously.
Okay, so size, all of this wasn't,
yeah, we
you guys just got
it
after the fact.
Correct,
okay.
Senator.
Well, it seems my time is up. I want to thank you very much for answering the questions for me. And if we have any more, I'll be happy to indulge. Thank you so much, Ms.
Thank you, Senator.
You don't have any other burning question, Senator Francis Heiliger?
Well, I had a couple more questions, but I don't mind waiting.
There's only one round.
We're only doing one round.
Yes, I was only doing one round, but if it's needed, we can go to a second round.
No.
But that's why I was asking if you had any other burning question that you wanted to ask.
Well, the only other thing I wanted to know had to do with the 68 contracts in regards to the 80 million. How much of those have already been executed, and how far along are you with those?
So it varies. Some of them may be going through the approval process or execution stage. Some can be in draft right now. So they're all pending. I can't speak to the percentages that is right at the point of execution. I can't speak to that.
Okay. Well, the reason why I want to know these things is because a lot of times people don't realize that when we do get monies for different things, whether we're using local funds or federal dollars, this is funding that circulates within the community. So for me, a lot of times when people call my office and it's vendors and they're like, why is the process taking so long? My concern also goes to that, because the longer it takes us to get these things executed and funding goes out into the community to help these businesses and the employees, and that's another aspect of it. So as it leads to the speedy time as to how long it takes for you guys to process contracts and get them running.
And Senator, if I may, it could be 25 today. It could be 100 today. As you know, we discussed, they change every day. They change.
Okay.
So thank you.
Well, thank you so much. Thank you,
You're
Madam
welcome.
Chair, for the additional time.
You're more than welcome. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you are recognized for a quick question that you may have. Lightning.
Okay. I also wanted to get some information for the Vendors Plaza. Were all the displaced vendors, have they now been, is everyone back at the Vendors Plaza? And could you please explain that? That's the first part. Could I see the second part? Thank you.
You may proceed. Don't abuse the chair generosity now. I'm being generous.
Okay, so, and the second part is, when it comes to the cost, you said just the Vendors Plaza was 1.5. What did 1.5 million? Was that inclusive of the labor to put them up? So what was the total cost of purchasing plus, and what was the individual to set up each one? Thank you.
Vincent Richards. I was just corrected that we did expend, including acquisition and construction, was north of $3 million.
Yes.
$3 million.
That's
so
what I heard.
We do stand corrected on that part.
That's why I asked about the labor, if you had separated the purchase and the labor, because we heard it was over $3 million. And for the individual amount of kiosks, how much did it cost to put up each one? Because if I multiply by how many's there, that's a lot of money.
Yes.
To put up one of those metal things.
Correct.
It's almost like building a house. I was almost confused to the cost. So how did this add up? It's very confusing to me. But also don't forget the first part about how did you deal with the displaced vendors. Thank you very much.
Vincent Richards. All of the vendors that were there at the Vendors Plaza previously, no, they have not been placed. In our due diligence, we found that some of the vendors that had approval to operate at the Vendors Plaza, some of them didn't live in the Virgin Islands. I got calls from the continent of Africa, said they want their space back. We got calls from folks, or we've contacted folks and said they were in Colorado and they were skiing and they wanted their space back. And I can go on and on with the stories. So we made a conscious effort to place the individuals that were there, putting the work in every day, and we made sure they were placed. We also made an effort, or will be making an effort, to weed out the ones that were subleasing, because we had found out or had reports that some folks were subleasing the spaces for $1,000 a month for the same space they were paying $200 a year for. And you know, I could talk to you on a sidebar about some other allegations about exploitation going on at the Vendors Plaza as well. That will make you cringe, but that's a different topic. But nonetheless, we made an effort to, one, place the individuals that were there, putting them to work every day. We made an effort to put new individuals in there that were producing items and selling items that were produced in the Virgin Islands. We also made an effort in collaboration with the EDA, to give them one of the kiosks to feature artists that were producing stuff in the Virgin Islands, whether in St. Thomas, St. Croix, or St. Thomas, that didn't produce stuff in the amounts that they could sustain, but they can give it to the EDA for their pop-up shop, sell it on consignment, and EDA would give them money. EDA is currently getting some funding to get 2 employees to actually man their kiosk. So we've made the effort. It hasn't been perfect, but we're not done yet. We're going to continue to try to improve the area, improve the experience, and maintain the area, wash it down on a regular basis, pick up the trash, landscape, shade it, and make it someplace that we're all proud of and someplace that you want to actually walk in there and experience from time to time and discover new things and new people. So we're not done yet. That's the mantra if you wanna walk away with one.
Okay, thank you. On behalf of Bill 35.0014, Senator Francis Heiliger, you are recognized.
Good afternoon, my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifiers. First, this has been a long time coming. This has been a piece of legislation that I submitted during the 34th legislature, and I am happy that during the 35th, we're actually getting to hear it for the first time. I want to take this time out because this is a piece of legislation that pays homage to an individual that has been a part of our community for many years. Unfortunately, during recent years, he did pass away, but nevertheless, we wanted to take time so that we could recognize this individual who played such a huge role in dealing with the history of this territory, in sharing information, Mr. Wayne Faxman Adams. For those of you that might not know him, if you ever listen to any of the radio stations throughout the territory, at some point you would have heard Mr. Adams really on sharing about the history of this territory. He had a wealth of knowledge that, it was parallel to none. As I often listen to him and listen to his stories, Faxman was always that person with this piece of paper running around making predictions for every election. And it was quite interesting with him. I've had so many of these little pieces of paper he's written over the years. But, even though he's not here, we wanted to make sure that his name lived on forever. And in having conversations not only with the public, we wanted to name what some would often call the bridge to nowhere and give it a bridge to somewhere and to someone. And if my colleagues do support this piece of measure, he will have his name written down in history and forever be remembered. I often would listen to Mr. Adams and his stories and what he chose to share. And, as a avid ICMer, you could never tell him anything about the ICM party that Mr. Adams didn't already know. And he would share with you the history. And it was a beautiful thing to have someone know so much about the Virgin Islands and was always willing to educate. But one thing about Mr. Adams I always admired is Mr. Adams did not have any shame or any stigma when it came to his mental health and wellness. For those of you that might also know, or you might not have known, he also had some challenges. But Mr. Adams would always come out and tell you point blank, this is what I have to deal with. This is how I deal with them. And I would always look at him with a sense of pride, like, look at somebody that understands what's happening, and he's not ashamed to tell so that he could also help others. So also from that aspect, I had to give him kudos. So I'm going to be quiet now and turn it over to the testifiers, but I really am asking my colleagues to support this piece of legislation. And I also want to thank Senator Marvin Blyden, who also is signed on this piece of legislation as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger. Senator Francis Heiliger, you wanted to add?
When you just mentioned the 2 testifiers, I wanted to also put on the record that we did invite 3 testifiers. Unfortunately, former Commissioner and former Senator Liston Davis is not feeling well today, and he will not be in attendance. So I do appreciate the 2 testifiers that were able to come and share their thoughts as well. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you so much for putting that on the agenda. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your motion.
I move that Bill number 35-0014, a bill, an act to posthumously honoring and commencing Wayne Faxman Adams for articulating and bringing events of historic significance to the people of the Virgin Islands by naming the bridge at the Nada intersection on the island of St. Thomas the Wayne Faxman Adams Bridge. That this bill be voted on favorably by this committee and forwarded to the Committee on Rules and the Judiciary. I so move.
Second.
Bill number 35-Zika. Senator Alma Francis Heiliger, you're recognized for your 4 minutes.
Good afternoon to my colleagues, to the people of the territory, to the testifier, so the honoree.
Good afternoon.
First of all, I would like to say thank you for being here with us. It is a great thing to see when we take time out to honor our own. Come January of next year, I would have been working in this institution for 25 years. And
True.
I have been here for a while, and many of those years you were also here in this institution working as a senator. And to see how the legislature was back then and to see how y'all work together, I have witnessed some interesting things over the years. Would you care to share with me what was one of the most significant things that you would remember or would like to share with us as a senator in the legislature of the Virgin Islands?
Oh, wow. I don't know if we could break it down into one, but
Well, give me
there's
one or two.
So many different things, you know. First of all, it's an honor to meet with folks from all walk of life. Mm-hmm. And I had opportunity to mingle with persons territory-wide that always made me feel like so special. Mm-hmm. Because I was like home anywhere I go. Whether it's St. John, St. Thomas, or St. Croix, that's my home. Yeah. And can you say St. Croix especially? I know what you're talking about, but but I think the ability to work with my colleagues was one of the special things. That a lot of times I had measures that the first time I tried it, they knock it down, but I was able to maneuver around and bring it back, because sometimes you just don't get it done the first time. You know, you have to find ways and find out what was the problem, why it went down, and why it didn't support it. Mm-hmm. And then you come back around and you do it. So it's an experience. But you know what helped me? I was a teacher. So I had a lot of students. So when I sat in that chair, I had a lot of students out there. So you have to know the students. You have to know whatever they do. You know, you have to know them individually. You got to know them react. And so because of that, you can maneuver.
Good.
You know, but things that I think that was important, mm-hmm. My home island. My home island suffered from many deficiencies. Today they still do. Mm-hmm. But we tried to bring some life or parity to it. Like one of the first things that I tried, and it still didn't work, and I hope it would work now, is a birthing center.
1 minute.
Yeah. You know. Oh, yeah, a birthing center. And because, you know, St. John's come down here.
Yes.
I'm one of the few who have been fortunate to be born there. Yeah. Yes. And so that was one of the issues that kind of bothered me still, you know. But when we got the buses for St. John, mm-hmm. was one of my best times, because every other island had bus service and we never had. Good. And I got to thank Governor Roy Snyder, who kind of worked with me in that, and that's what made it happen. You know, but there are so many other things, education initiative, But the real thing about it is that I try to make a difference. It wasn't about money. It's never been about money. It's never been about fame. It was always about trying to make a difference. And I remember I was a teacher at Udoracan. The SAL and the VAL were just separated by 1 point. And when the awards came out, the VAL got all the awards, and the SAL got nothing. And I said, that can't happen no more. So when I came to the Senate, I started what you call the VAL and SAL. And it's changed now to go to UBI. Because I felt that wasn't right, that wasn't fair. And so I try to live my life like that. That's how it was.
Well, I am so happy to hear all of those things that you left your footprint on in a positive way.
I could tell you some other things too, but...
Yeah, but I think I'm down to the last 10 seconds.
Yeah.
Well, to the testifier, what would you would like to share with us? Madam Chair, may I just ask my final question?
You may proceed.
Thank you. The final question I want to ask to the testifier, when it comes to, from your perception or even moving around this community, what do you think the one thing that sticks out about Senator Liber that the community has always embraced, or what do you believe he will always be known for?
I think that at the end of the day, Senator Liber will always be known for bringing a sense of commitment and a sense of statesmanship to the Virgin Islands and to public life. In an era in which too often we focus on killing and taking the head, he understood that the person that you're fighting against today is someone that you'll have to work with tomorrow.
Amen.
And he operated on that premise. And I think at the end of the day, that and his commitment to getting things done is what he'll be remembered for.
Thank you so much for that. Madam Chair, I appreciate the additional time, and I will definitely be voting in the affirmative.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
You are more than welcome.
Thank you so much, Senator Francis Heiliger.